We've entered into this Holy Triduum, this holy season, these 3 days of really the summit of our religion, the peak, the climax of our religion, the passion, the death, and the resurrection of Christ. And first of all, I want to congratulate you, to praise you for being here tonight. You, of course, don't need to be here. It's not a holy day of obligation, and you could have been doing other things, but you're here. And I encourage you, if at all possible, to really come to all of these liturgies in the next 3 days, really in the next 4 days. We have Holy Thursday, of course, tonight. Tonight, this Mass is called the Evening Mass of the Lord's Supper. And then tomorrow we have Good Friday of the Lord's Passion. We have the principal one at 3 p.m. on the hour on which Jesus died. And then, of course, 2 evening ones at 7 p.m. And then on Saturday, in the Vigil, we have the Easter Vigil, the Holy Saturday at the Easter Vigil. And so that's really the Holy Triduum. But then Sunday has its own Mass, the Resurrection of the Lord. So if at all possible, come to all 4 of these Masses. But as you know, for technicality, to fulfill the Sunday obligation, you can come either to the Vigil or to one of the ones on Sunday. And there's so much to talk about in all of these liturgies. There's so many themes. There's so much that's interwoven. And I want to just focus on one topic: betrayal. The theme of betrayal. Betrayal is perhaps the worst of all human experiences. I remember my history teacher in 9th grade, Mr. King, telling us about this. And he was someone who was involved in martial arts. He had been in lots of fights. He was a military veteran. He had been in warfare. He had seen friends die. And I remember him saying, there are things that are going to hurt you, physically, emotionally, psychologically. But you know what hurts the most? When your best friend betrays you. And most of us, if not all of us, have had this experience. Remember when I was in middle school, my best friend stopped talking to me and made another best friend. And I was crushed by that. In college, my girlfriend dumped me. And the way she did it, try not to laugh at this, I got a text message from one of our mutual friends, and he said, "I'm so sorry about your breakup." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, I went on Facebook and I saw her Facebook status was changed to single. So she broke up with you. You guys broke up, right?" So I call her, and sure enough, she broke up with me by changing her Facebook status. While in seminary, I went through a lot of therapy to go into childhood wounds. And I discovered just how deeply my parents had betrayed me. Not intentionally, of course, but in one way or another had let me down. And how much I had developed harmful strategies to try to cope with that betrayal. And we can all relate to these examples, and we can enumerate them endlessly. Betrayal and being betrayed is part of the universal human experience. Now take this human experience to its absolute limit. What do we get? There's this psychologist, Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist. He's a biblical commentator. And he's something of an expert on the stories that have shaped cultures, especially our Western culture. And he said this: the passion story is archetypal. It's a limit story. You cannot write a more tragic story. It's impossible. It's a story of the aggregation of everything that people are afraid of. There was no death more painful than crucifixion. That's why the Romans invented it. It was to punish the political miscreants. It was a slow, agonizing death by suffocation, dehydration, and exposure. Extraordinarily painful. Plus, he knew it was coming. Plus, one of his best friends betrayed him into it. Plus, his people turned against him. Plus, he knew it was coming. Plus, one of his best friends betrayed him. Plus, they were led by a tyrant who doubted truth itself. Plus, he was a victim of the Roman Empire, the greatest empire to ever exist. and at its peak. Plus, he was completely innocent. Plus, he was at the peak of his biological life. And all he had done up to that point was to help people. Plus, everybody knew it. Plus, they chose a criminal to be released from this experience, even though they knew he was a criminal and they knew Jesus was innocent. It's a limit story. You cannot write a more tragic story. And this isn't, of course, just a story that someone wrote. These are historical events. This happened. We can say that this is a story that God wrote in the pages of history. And why? Why did God do this? We'll get back to that shortly. But first, consider this. When you think about betrayal, who do you think that you are? Are you the betrayer or the betrayed? Certainly we all are, to some extent, the betrayed. I've given you 3 examples in which I have been betrayed. But I also can't escape the fact that I am also the betrayer. If I were to start listing all of the times that I've betrayed someone else, we'd be here all night. And more importantly, if I were to start listing all of the times that I betrayed Jesus, we'd be here all year. This is the point that many stories try to communicate to us. This is the Christian story. This is what Christ is trying to reveal to us. But there are lesser stories, and I'll bring up one, the story of the movie Shawshank Redemption, based on a great book. And we know the story, the book, in the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I encourage you to see it. In my opinion, one of the best movies ever made. But the story of a banker who was innocently accused, who was falsely accused of murdering his wife. And he did that or they thought that because he had caught her having an affair with him, and he was indeed planning on killing her. He even had a gun. But last minute, he changed his mind. He decided to throw the gun in the river, and he walked away innocent. But then we come to find out someone else came in that same night and killed both her and her partner. Well, the judge didn't know all of this and all the rest, and so he was accused, he was judged, he was sentenced for life in prison. He ended up serving 20 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. And it's a beautiful movie. I encourage you to see this if you haven't. Everything that happens in prison. But I'm going to spoil it for you a little bit. It's been out for like 30 years, so you've had your chance. And what happens is he comes to this place of recognizing his own guilt. And he says, "My wife used to say I'm a hard man to know, like a closed book. Complained about it all the time. She was beautiful. I loved her, but I guess I couldn't show it enough. I killed her, Red." Red is his best friend, who's really this Christ figure in the movie. "I killed her, Red." And he finally glances to Red, seeking a reaction. Silence. And then he says, "I didn't pull the trigger. Yes, I'm not guilty of that. But I drove her away. And that's why she died. Because of me, the way I am." If we can make this journey, this transformation of recognizing our own sinfulness, a whole world opens up to us. The world not of living in bitterness and resentment and of accusation of others, but the path of Christ. Because we are Judas, we turn him in. We are Peter, we deny him 3 times, more like 3 million times. In our pride, we even say to Jesus, "You will never wash my feet." At this point of the story, Judas and Peter were not too different from each other. We often think that we're Peter, in a good sense, making all sorts of promises and resolutions, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Saint Peter was not the one who made firm resolutions and fulfilled them. Saint Peter was the one who realized he was utterly incapable of doing so. The one who realized he was as weak as Judas. the one who learned to stop relying on himself and learned to start relying on the work and power of the Blessed Trinity. But maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we're still attached to all sorts of things, including our pride and our own will. So we're both the betrayer and the betrayed. And what do we do about this? Two things. First, we acknowledge our woundedness, our having been betrayed. We bring Jesus into it and we unite ourselves to him. We can do that this weekend as we go through the Triduum. We can say to him, Jesus, I was betrayed, and so were you. You didn't have to be. You could have stayed in heaven with the Father and the Spirit, but you came down from heaven. You submitted in love and obedience to the will of the Father. You handed yourself over. You accepted your death on the cross. And you did this for me personally. I too want to say yes. Yes to everything that the Father wills. Even yes to being betrayed. Yes, Father, take this cup away from me, but not my will, but yours be done. I unite myself to you and to you on the cross. I trust that the cross is not the end. I trust that you will bring me to the resurrection. And secondly, and perhaps most importantly, or at least as importantly, we focus on the fact that we are the betrayer. We are Judas. We can also do this weekend. Jesus, I've betrayed many, and I've betrayed you. I do not deserve you. I'm so unfaithful to you. But for some reason, you remain faithful to me. With my sins, I nail you to the cross. Yet you cry out to the Father on my behalf. Father, forgive him, forgive her, for they know not what they are doing. If we do this, if we accept this disposition and this path, Jesus comes to us. And what does he do? Does he berate us? Does he wag his finger at us? Of course not. He performs a humiliating gesture. He gets on his knees before us and washes our feet. Why does he do this for us again and again? It's simple. We can't grasp it, but it's simple. Because he loves us.